Okay, cool. Looks like we're live.
All right.
Hello, world. So, hi, everybody. My name is Zeke. I'm a developer at GitHub on the Electron team. And today I'm talking with Cassidy Williams, otherwise known as Cassie Do on Twitter and GitHub, Cassidoo. Cassidy is a software engineer in Seattle, where she heads the developer voice programs at Amazon. She's a prolific writer, speaker, maker, and an earner of passive income. And that's why I want to talk to you today, just to learn more about what passive income is and how you're making it.
Sounds good. I'm excited.
Cool. So GitHub offers its employees an annual budget to spend on learning and development. Um, and I've been trying to think of creative ways to spend that money. So one of the things I've been doing is um, using that money to pay smart people to teach me about things that I don't know much about. So passive income is one of those things. So in exchange for your time and your energy, I'll make a donation to a cause of your choosing. So do you have a cause in mind, and what is your reasoning behind choosing it?
Yeah, there's this group called Destiny Rescue, and they're a nonprofit dedicated to rescuing children from human trafficking. And it's all over the place, but specifically in Thailand, Cambodia, the Philippines, Laos, Dominican Republic, and India. And they have donor offices all over the world too. And yeah, that's the one that I think would be great. I once did an anti-human trafficking hackathon, and that's always really stuck with me. And I try to put efforts towards that when I can.
So can you tell me a little bit about the hackathon? What did you actually work on? What did folks think?
Yeah, so I was working at Clarify at the time, which does image recognition, and I was helping people use the image recognition portion of our APIs. I was more mentoring at the hackathon than building.
Mhm.
And we had this was in New York City, and we had the DA office there, and just a bunch of high level organizations there. And what was really cool about it, and it was very humbling the entire time, because some of the workers there, this is their life day in and day out. Every single time like someone presented their hacks, they were so excited because it could make a real difference in saving someone's life. And there was one point where one of the hacks, it was just like it was using Twilio, and it just found the sources of the phone numbers, like what service provider those phone numbers are, and just that little bit of information of getting like a CSV of phone numbers and getting the providers was able to be enough information to bring to a judge and save 16 women, I think. And yeah, it was an incredible experience. And yeah, I think technology and support towards those kinds of organizations can make a huge difference in legitimately saving lives.
Awesome. So we'll make a point of linking to those in the notes. But can you also mention here, perhaps the name again of the charity?
It's called Destiny Rescue.
Okay, great. So if we Google Destiny Rescue, we'll probably come across it.
Yeah, I think it's destinyrescue.org or something. Yeah, destinyrescue.org.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That sounds like a very good cause, and I'm gonna have to look into that myself.
Yeah.
Um, so today we're going to be talking about passive income, and I know it's cliche, but I looked it up on Wikipedia as a start, and it says passive income is generally defined as a stream of income earned with little effort. And I wonder really if there is such a thing as a stream of income earned with little effort. I suppose it does exist, but I know very little about it.
I
um,
would think of it as upfront effort rather than little effort.
okay, that's a great way to to refine the definition. So you've got a lot of pans in the fire. Can you enumerate some of the projects that you're working on that would fall into this category of passive income?
Let's see. Probably the most consistent streams of it are online classes. My most popular one is on Udemy, and it's a JavaScript and React course. I've done small little classes on Skillshare, and then I've done a couple for O'Reilly. And those are mostly just like when people buy the course at the end of the month, I get a PayPal notification or something. And sometimes it is very little, like as little as $2, but sometimes it's as much as like $2,000. And so it definitely varies depending on how much I push my courses that day or that month. But yeah, those are probably my most consistent streams. And then I've also tried to do little things here and there. So there's some services like Society6 and Threadless and a few other places where you just have to submit a design for something, and they'll put it on a T-shirt or on a notepad or on a laptop case or a sticker or something, and then you get a cut of that too. And so that's been kind of my latest one, because that is a little less upfront effort than making a full-on online class where I can just like Photoshop something or put a funny phrase on something and then it's on a T-shirt, and there's that. And then I'm working on just a few side projects on the side, some secret, some not, where I'm either going to try to raise some money for it to keep it going, or make it so people can buy the project. And then I also run a weekly newsletter just with technical interview questions and web links and just stuff that I find interesting, mechanical keyboards and jokes. And that one doesn't really generate much. I mostly just started doing it because I thought it would be kind of fun and force me to close some tabs and read articles that I keep open forever. But there have been people who have like sent me some money here and there on Venmo or PayPal just as a thanks for the newsletter. And so those are probably my biggest streams that I have.
Okay, great. So with the online courses, when you set about doing that, what was the first one that you created? Do you remember?
The first just content that I got from it.
The first online sort of educational thing that you sold on Udemy or one of those.
Yeah. So the first one was O'Reilly, and that was a very beginner HTML and CSS class that I did with my sister.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, it was very, very. It was great because the O'Reilly, like after we kind of pitched it to them, I had met them at a conference. They brought us to their recording studio in Boston, so we were able to record all of it there. The one problem with that course, which is why I don't promote it very much, and this is something that this is very behind the scenes, but I had Chipotle right before, and there was something in that Chipotle, and I was not feeling well the entire time, and so just kind of throughout the course, you can see me slowly starting to look a little more sweaty and a little more just like, okay, we're going to talk about tables. A TR is a row, and just like getting it done. And so I don't promote that course very actively because it was kind of a traumatic experience for my stomach. And maybe people don't notice it. My sister, she's just like, it's not as bad as it looks, but I definitely notice it. And so that was the first one that I did. And that was about 3 years ago now. Yeah.
Okay. So when you recorded it, did you have like a goal in mind of like, oh, I hope I could make like $50 from this, or was it just sort of an experiment?
It was a little bit of an experiment because I hadn't made anything online before that would make money. And so I was kind of just like, okay, let's try to see where this could end up and have some kind of ballpark. And yeah, it worked out. I think the most I've ever gotten for that one in a month is maybe like $50. So it's not a ton, but I mean, that gets me a coffee or a book or something when I'm looking for it. And then later I also did a like webinar on web accessibility, and people can buy the recording on that one on O'Reilly as well. And that one, I think the most it's gotten me is $12. So again, not very much, but it's a little something here and there.
Yeah. But I'm sure it adds up, right?
Yeah, especially over time, and then when you stack all of the things on top of each other.
So after you recorded your first few, what motivated you to continue to do this? Was it you saw money coming in and saw, wow, this could actually turn into something legitimate, or was it just like, I love creating things, I love sharing them with the world, and so I'm just going to continue to do this and slap a price tag on it just in case it gets me a little extra income?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. Because ultimately what I would love to do is be able to generate enough passive income where I can just stop working and continue making content and cool stuff just full time. I think that'd be so fun. I'm just not there yet. Um, but at the same time, I have a dev evangelist background, and I really love being able to share content with people and getting stories like, your React class is the reason I got a job, and little comments like that just totally make my day. And I love seeing people who are able to take what I give and just run with it. And so there's a little bit of both intrinsic and extrinsic motivation there.
Yeah, totally. So speaking of your day job, you work at Amazon in Seattle. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I'm at Amazon. I haven't been there for very long. I've been there since February. And my role is a really weird one that's hard to explain in like a sentence. But it's basically a combination of a lot of different roles that is both a software engineer and developer evangelist and a program manager of sorts. And so it is my job to be the person in between the developers externally building skills for Alexa and the teams who are building APIs and SDKs and stuff for Alexa and exposing it to developers. And so I get feedback from developers, give it to product teams, get new features from product teams and give it to developers. And so I'll help with beta programs or run webinars, or sometimes when product teams want to release something, but they don't know if it'll be good, I'm the first one to just try to build something with it, and I can give them feedback before they expose it. And so sometimes I'm coding, sometimes I'm event planning, sometimes I'm just giving tech talks and stuff. It's a fun job, but it's a lot of spinning plates.
Mm-hmm. So you tweeted recently, or maybe retweeted, something about Alexa now having some kind of marketplace. Is that right?
They launched in-skill monetization. And so you can make skills now that make you money, is probably what I retweeted.
How does that work? What is a skill?
So a skill is an app for Alexa. It's just like the name for it. Because like a person learns skills, Alexa can learn skills too. And so now when you build a skill, you can have things that are kind of behind some sort of paywall in the skill. And so all skills will always be freemium. You should be able to at least use the basics of a skill for free, but then you can buy more. And so, for example, like if you have the Jeopardy skill and you really like Jeopardy, you can buy new categories or new types of questions and games for the current game. Or one skill that I really want to build, and I don't care if I share the idea with the world, is I play Go a lot, the like black and white pieces on the grid game, and I really want to connect an open source like Go bot to Alexa, so you can be like, Alexa G7 or whatever, and then be able to buy like a coach where she could say, actually, a better move is this, and here's why. Because there's those elements out there in the open source world. So I would really love to do something like that, but sometime when I have.
Someday, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing a little bit of feedback from your mic. I think you might be, yeah, that's a little scratchy.
Okay. I think it's because it's running into something. Is it better now?
Yes, it's better now. Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Cool. So this actually segues nicely into something I wanted to ask you about, which is, okay, you said you want to build a skill. You work for Amazon. If you were going to make a skill that you were going to charge money for, there's potentially a conflict of interest there. So if you were going to write this Go skill for Alexa, would that be something that you would just be doing as part of your job, like sort of testing out the product? Or does Amazon have a policy that allows its employees to create skills on the side and charge money for them?
They're actually pretty good about it. And you can create skills on the side and make money from them. As far as I know that like my sister, she also works at Amazon, and she and her teammates have done that, and they haven't had to worry about that yet. So they're pretty cool about it. Usually it's I just like tell my manager saying, hey, by the way, I'm making a new online class, or I'm doing this new project here and there. And that's kind of kind of just how it works. It's more of a handshake agreement than anything. If it's very relevant to your job, I think like if you have a straight software engineering role and you're coding on the side, they want to know. And then if you're a product manager and you're doing product management on the side, they really want to know. But yeah, generally it's kind of just like, this is what I'm doing, just so you're aware.
Yeah. So in general, a good policy might be to just talk to your manager at your company about something you want to get involved in ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I've run into this a lot. I used to work at a company called Heroku, which has it's like a platform, an add-ons platform for distributing software as a service. So it's kind of like an app store for databases or for email tools or logging or analytics or things like that. And they have this model where Heroku takes 30% of whatever the add-on generates. And in the early days of this program, many employees created add-ons, and that was totally okay. They got away with it, and it made a lot of sense because these employees really understood the value of the platform and saw these really unique opportunities to make really powerful tools on top of this platform. But as Heroku grew and was acquired by Salesforce, eventually a new policy was put in place that sort of disallowed developers from doing this, and a lot of them left the company and are still, making their add-ons and making a living just off of their add-ons, spending, in some cases it is passive income at this point because they've built these services and they just continue to generate money. But I saw firsthand that a case where a company grew beyond allowing its employees to make money on the side using its platform. So now I work at GitHub, and GitHub has a very sort of progressive intellectual privacy policy that allows its employees to create projects on their own time, and it does not become the property of GitHub. But I still kind of am not entirely clear about certain things. Like, I'm working on an Electron app, and I work on the Electron team, and I'd love to put this app in the Mac App Store and charge a few bucks for it. But there's a part of me that goes, this just seems so incredibly close to the work that I normally do. Like, I don't feel wrong about it myself. And I also feel like the amount of money that it would generate is so little that it's probably not going to raise any flags. But I think what you're saying about talking to your manager first is probably the best place to start. So I also I think a good way to potentially avoid this problem entirely is to create products that are completely outside of the space of the work that you're doing. So that might be a good way to segue into, I know you created a beautiful mechanical keyboard that looks somewhat like a Scrabble board. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I was actually going to bring that one up next. And so I'm a very big mechanical keyboard fanatic. I love building them all the time, and I keep several at my desk, both at home and at work. And it's just a fun hobby that I picked up, and I learned how to solder and put everything together. And I probably check the subreddit for it every day, multiple times. And yeah, the design process for that was unconventional, in which I woke up from a dream where I was typing on a Scrabble board. I was like, oh, that makes sense. And then I just scribbled out a quick design for it, and then went back to sleep, and then woke up the next day. I was like, wow, that was actually a pretty decent idea. And so I refined the design more and found better colors for it and everything. And I realized if I wanted to make it real, I had to get permission to actually use the Scrabble logo and everything. And so I just started cold calling people on LinkedIn and on Facebook, and just kept reaching out to groups saying, does anybody know anyone at Hasbro? So I could just keep finding connections until someone could help me. And then eventually someone where she knew a friend who used to work there who knows someone else, that some crazy connection like that got me to an account manager at Hasbro who liked the idea. And so he was able to get me the license. And then I went to Massdrop, because they manufacture keyboards and all kinds of interesting products all the time. And I just said, hey, I have this design and this license. Can we make this and work on this together? And yeah, that's kind of how it worked out. And so we split both the royalties as well as just all the work up front and everything. And so they are helping more on the manufacturing side. They have all the relationships with manufacturers and stuff. And I kind of guide the design direction and everything. And yeah, that's how the keyboard worked out. And Amazon, they were totally fine with it. I also had designed it before I worked at Amazon, and the process was already in motion before Amazon, so they couldn't do anything about it anyway. But yeah, I'm really excited about it. We sold like over 1,000 keycap sets, which I'm really pumped about. And then we also had a full keyboard if you don't want to build one yourself. And I know a lot of people got those for like family and friends too. So yeah, that was a great project. I'm really excited about that one.
So a keycap set is like you already have your own standard keyboard and you can put caps on it.
Yeah, and so and it has to be mechanical because that's just how it works. But you can take out your existing keycaps and just plop them on, and they should fit like a charm, which I'm really pumped about.
Cool. So what's the breakdown of revenue there? What did Hasbro get? What do you get? If you're able to talk about it, what does Massdrop take from that?
Yeah, so Hasbro took like 8% of the revenue, and then I took 5 to 8%, somewhere in there. Ooh, someone is taking my room. I'm going to move to the one next door. Sorry about that.
No worries. Are you at work right now?
I am. We'll just scoot into the room next door. No big deal, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so I take about either 5 or 8%, and then Hasbro takes 5 or 8%. I mix up the two numbers. And then Massdrop, because they're fronting all the costs of actually manufacturing the caps and getting all the color samples and stuff, they kind of handle the rest. And so, yeah, I don't know how much I've made yet because we're waiting until it actually ships, because people can cancel their orders until the actual ship date. And so everything is manufacturing now. I have a box of color samples in my house. And yeah, that's how that one worked. I'm excited.
So I went on the Massdrop site and looked at the keyboard, and there was some kind of option to like indicate that I'm interested, but there wasn't an option to buy. Is there?
Yeah.
How does that?
So that is because the drop ended. So it was available to buy for like a 6-week period, and then now that the way Massdrop works is they kind of get all the orders and then make a group buy, and so things tend to be cheaper when you go to a manufacturer with like 1,000 people rather than just little me. And so that's kind of how it works. And so they had the 6-week window where anybody could buy it, and then they got all of those numbers together and sent it to the manufacturer, and that's how the prices happen. And so like if you look at some of the graphs for the keycap set, you can see the price got a little bit lower over time just as more people bought into it.
Okay, cool. So is there now an opportunity for there to be another group of people buying it?
I hope so. So usually what Massdrop does with like rebuys and everything is they kind of they wait to see, first of all, how many people get it and everything, and how demand grows based on that, because a lot of people will hit that request button, and that just goes into their queue of just like, okay, if it hits this many requests, they'll do another buy again. So it probably will happen, but not until after the sets ship this summer. And so, yeah, we'll see. I've maintained the relationship with Massdrop, and I'm trying to see what other keycap sets I could design with them, so that way we could do that again. So hopefully soon people can jump on it again.
Well, so in the prototyping phase for this, were you working with like a 3D printer, or were you just designing like graphics in some kind of software program and sending them off to a vendor that would produce like prototype keycaps for you, or what was the process there?
So as a keyboard enthusiast, I have a lot of keycaps already. And so in terms of like picking a keycap shape and stuff, that was already kind of taken care of for me because there's so many shapes out there. I just kind of picked one. And the shape is called XDA. And what I liked about that one is it's flat on the top. There's a lot of curved ones. It's flat on the top and it's very square. So kind of like Scrabble pieces. And then in terms of the actual design, there's this great website just called keyboardlayouteditor.com. And there's like dashes in between the words, but you can just kind of put keycaps in there, and it's meant to be designed so you can not only put colors in there, but you can export JSON from it and then get laser cutted plates if you want for a keyboard that you want to build. And so you can not only design the colors, but also just arrange where you want caps to go and where holes should be in your board for screws and stuff. It's a great little website. I don't actually know who builds it, but it's awesome. And you can save things just via GitHub gists, and that's how it works. So yeah, I designed it there, and then just kept iterating just in that little website, and kept saving that JSON and everything. And then once I was happy with the colors, I ended up, like, for example, for triple word score, I just kind of averaged a bunch of different images I found until I found a color that was kind of a mix of all of them, and then that was the color I chose. And that's just how I did for a lot of the different colors too. And yeah, well, once I got that, I passed it off to Massdrop, and they're like, okay, XDA, these colors, that's all we really need. And we went from there.
Wow, very cool. Let's talk a little bit about the newsletter. Can you remind me, what's the URL for that?
That is tinyletter.com/Casadoo.
Okay.
I call it Rendezvous with Casadoo, but I never refer to the name besides in the title.
That's a good title. It's catchy. Can you talk a little bit about what were your motivations for creating it? You said you have a bunch of tabs open in your browser and it forces you to read all this content. What were some of your other motivations, and how has it worked out so far?
Yeah, so I originally started it because Udemy prompted me to, actually. So my big JavaScript and React course I have on there, it took me many months to put it all together. I ended up releasing it the week of my wedding too, which I don't recommend. But I worked on that course for probably like 6 to 8 months, getting all the content in place, recording everything, editing everything. And I was just working directly where, as I was working on things, I would kind of use Udemy as my PM, and I would say, okay, here's what I got done this week, and that sort of thing. And they're pretty good about that. I think anybody can talk to a Udemy person in that regard. And they had mentioned that if I want to get a lot of traction for my course, I need to build an audience that I can share to. And so last year, it was kind of just a huge social media and content push for me. And so I had already been contributing to open source and everything, but I think last year I ended up getting like almost 7,000 Twitter followers just in that year, because I was pushing so much content and trying to be more strategic than just tweeting articles and stupid crap. And then that's also when I started the newsletter, and I was just like, okay, if I can build an audience there, maybe I can share my course with them. And then that's how it started. And then I just started to really enjoy it. And again, it forces me to read the tabs. I have so many tabs open right now looking at my screen. I can't see the favicons even. So it forces me to read those tabs. The technical interview questions on there kind of forced me to stay practiced. And so it was good for me to just help with my own knowledge, but I also, like I said before, I do like giving back when I can, and I found it to be useful for people when they were able to see the solution to certain interview questions, or to start a discussion on Twitter based on some of the articles I shared. So yeah, that's kind of how it started, and then how it grew. And then there were a couple times where I've just put a link at the bottom saying, hey, by the way, if you want to support my efforts, this is my Venmo, if you ever want to send me anything. And I haven't gotten much from it, but again, it stacks up. So a few little donations of $1 and of $5 here and there make for something kind of fun. And again, it's bought me a book. And yeah, that's kind of how the newsletter started and where it's at now. And I think it's at almost 2,000 subscribers. And the read rate, I've been experimenting with like adding an emoji in the subject line, and seeing which days people read it more often than others. And I keep about a 45 to 55% read rate, which I'm generally happy with. I'm not sure what most newsletters get, so I just kind of go with it.
What constitutes reading? Like actually opening the email?
Yeah, so there's TinyLetter is run by MailChimp, and there's a lot of little analytics that you can get into, and it has like open rate, and I think it has to be open for a certain amount of time or something for it to be counted as read. And then there's also click-through rates too, and click-through is like if you click on the links and open everything, and the click-through rate is always lower just because that's how it is, but it's stayed generally within those percentages for the read rate.
Yeah. So I'm a regular reader of your newsletter, and I haven't noticed that you've been self-promoting much. Is that because I'm just not paying close attention, or are you not actually dropping direct links and references to your side projects in the newsletter?
That's kind of on purpose. I don't want to just bombard people with "I'm awesome" or anything, and so it's mostly just like when I release something, that's when I'll put it in there. And so again, like my online course, my mechanical keyboard, just things like that. When I'm very excited about something, there was a tweet I was really proud of that had a Vim joke in it. Whenever there's something that I'm like pretty proud of, I'll stick it in there. But besides that, I try to keep it like generally interesting. Because if people are just reading about one person all the time, they might get bored with it. And I know I get bored with it when I've read other people's newsletters too. And so I try to keep it generally interesting. And then if it's something that I want to release and really share it, that's when I push it out there. So you're right in that I haven't promoted much, but I have a little bit just here and there.
Yeah. So in general, do you find that just increasing the size of your audience is the most important thing? Well, maybe not the most important thing, but if you're increasing the size of your readership, that's having, in theory, an effect on the number of sort of customers you have trickling in on your side projects.
Yeah, that's definitely a huge part of it. And I'm big in networking and stuff too. I love following up on the business cards at conferences and everything too. And so that is a big aspect of it, where I just think those kinds of connections are important in general, for all kinds of professional reasons. But yeah, building that audience is almost necessary if you want to have some kind of passive income, because if nobody is listening to you, then no one will care if you're promoting something because they're not paying attention.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you find the time to do all this stuff? How do you manage your time?
Oh, that's a great question. I gave a talk on this earlier this week at a conference in SF. So I have a very strict calendar, and it kind of ebbs and flows with the different elements of things that are going on in my life. Because outside of these projects and everything, I'm also a musician. I'm in the Seattle Video Game Orchestra, and we play like Zelda and Mario music and stuff around Seattle. And then I'm also in this like very funky, very Seattle electric guitar band. And so Monday nights I have orchestra rehearsal. Wednesday nights I have guitar rehearsal. And then in between is where I do other side project things. And I don't do it all the time. Sometimes I need a break and I just play Fortnite after work. But usually just my evenings, I'm either like relaxing, playing Fortnite, watching Netflix or something, or I'm coding or working on something. And I try to at least do something every day, whether it's just, if it's as little as just reading a blog post or an article to try to remember something, or something bigger where I'm trying to actually get tickets done on a side project that I'm working on. I try to do something, because I figure if I keep that up as a habit, then it's a habit and natural and not work. And I do enjoy doing that too, because otherwise I get fidgety and bored. And even if I do retire early someday, I have a feeling I'll be working on something at some point all the time. And yeah, there are times where like we have off season for orchestra practice during the summer. And so that's more when coding kicks into gear and I get to work on one of my other lists of projects. And one other thing that I started was I have a Slack channel just for close friends where we're all interested in passive income. We call it PI for Passive Income Enthusiasts. And we talk in there pretty much every day. Just we have like a spitballing channel where we just brainstorm things that we could work on. And we have a current projects channel and a content creation channel. And even though it's just like a close group of friends, there's an investing channel too, because some of them like that. It kind of we keep each other in check and motivated, and we can set goals with each other, and that definitely helps keep us motivated too.
Oh, that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
I might have to knock on the door of that Slack room.
Yeah.
So I was gently stalking your tweet stream and saw something about, you retweeted this tweet that said, "It might be time to move away as a culture from the idea that a genius is someone who figured out how to make a ton of money and a name for themselves." I just wanted to call that out because I think, here we are talking about passive income, and the implication is that that's like, money is the most important thing. But I don't think we've necessarily, that's been the tone of this conversation, but I wanted to call that out because I think there are potentially more important things than money. So what prompted you to retweet that? I guess I'd ask.
I just agreed with it. I think that the term genius is thrown around at a lot of people who who like follow this traditional idea of genius, when really it's just like they worked on something at the right place at the right time. And they're like, I was talking about this with a friend of mine recently who works at Twitter, and she was saying so much of the work she does right now is just cleaning code and fixing things. And they're saying the person who founded this company or X company, Y company, Z company, they're hailed as this genius because they were able to make this thing work, but it was held together by duct tape. This code is terrible. They are not a genius. It has nothing to do with knowledge whatsoever. They were able to just get something out the door that worked, and now they're hailed as this amazing genius person and stuff. And so that's those kinds of sentiments are kind of where that came from. And I think there's a lot of people throwing around like life right now, and with the crazy political and economic climates and millennials not being able to afford anything but avocado toast. There's I think a lot of shifts in mindset on what is smart and what should you do with not only your money but also just your time and efforts and everything. And I think that what is really valuable is not only just the people around you and just your values, your beliefs, but also what are you learning and what are you producing that makes you happy and makes you able to contribute to society in some way. That kind of was very rambly and stuff, but that's kind of where that came from.
Yeah. So I saw that you were involved with the Grace Hopper Celebration for Women in Computing. I just read an excellent book called Broadband about the history of the women who built the internet, and Grace Hopper was certainly a big part of that process. She popularized the idea of machine agnostic programming languages, and sort of pioneered the creation of COBOL, which was one of the first programming languages that could operate in different environments. It was like the first programming language that different vendors could use. And now COBOL is something that people make jokes about. But I just wanted to hear if you had anything to say about your involvement in that project, and what is it?
So the Grace Hopper Conference is a giant women in tech conference. When I first started going there when I was in school, it was maybe 3,000 women, and I thought that was big, but now it's more like 16,000 every year. It's just this huge, huge conference, and it's about just kind of being professional in the workplace, navigating difficult conversations, and also just tech talks and research talks and everything. And I've met so many cool women in tech as a result of Grace Hopper, and some of my really close friends I've met because I've been to that conference or relevant meetups. And one of the events I went to with NCWIT, the National Center for Women in Information Technology, I met Jean Sammet, who worked with Grace Hopper on COBOL and everything. And unfortunately, she passed away a couple of years ago. But having those kinds of experiences and being able to see all of these different great women and people in general who have kind of overcome obstacles in the face of adversity and bias and stereotypes and all sorts of things. It's been so helpful to me and so many others in staying in the field and continuing to excel in the field. And yeah, it's a great organization. I've given a talk there, I think, twice now, and I'll probably give more at some point too.
That's great. We'll have to link to that in the notes. That's all the questions I had. I want to know if there's anything else on your mind related to this topic in general that you wanted to share.
Really, I think passive income and just the idea of being able to have something on the side so you don't have to work at a company or rely on a company for your income. I think it's something that people should definitely consider doing because it kind of gives you a little bit of financial independence. And sometimes it's just a little bit, but it's just enough where it can kind of put your mind at ease because as much as money isn't everything, it's important. And yeah, I think that it's good to think about, because if there's a way for you to at least make a little bit of something here and there that can help you down the line, it's definitely something to look into.
Great. So if we were going to summarize some of the things that we covered here, one would be don't eat Chipotle before you do a recording.
Really don't do that. Oh, bad choices.
Another would be if you are going to be producing something that is very closely related to the work you do at your day job, talk to your manager about it first to make sure it's okay.
Yep.
What else? It's important to have a following on social media and to actively be producing content that is not entirely self-promotional but actually has intellectual and entertainment value.
Yeah, use for people, not just saying it's all about me.
What else? Those are the big ones that stand out for me.
Yeah, COBOL is old.
COBOL is old. Don't write your passive income side project in COBOL.
Yeah. Well, if you do, I'd respect you a ton for it, but I don't know how long it could sustain that.
Yeah, it'd probably be a small audience of people who would be into it. Cool. Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And this has been really educational for me. So
yeah, it was great talking to you.
Cool. I'm going to press the stop button on this broadcast.
Okay.
Bye-bye, world.
Bye, world.